you all are able to jump back on. Those of you who are on, hello again. Happy Saturday. I hope everyone is well. And I just wanted to come on and give you guys a quick encouraging word. I'm going to use this stand for as long as I can, but not for long because unfortunately, I don't have a tripod with me, and the phone mount is in the window, and I'm in the deep south. Well, maybe not deep. It ain't that deep. I'm in the low country. I'm in the coastal Carolina area, and it is hot out here. And so I oftentimes cannot use my phone mount during the summer because the phone overheats. Nevertheless, happy Saturday. I'm coming to you, bringing you greetings from the low country area, the coastal Carolina area, and I have a quick encouraging word for you this afternoon. I do not plan to be long, and I parked right outside of my next errand just to ensure that I remember that I got some other stuff that I need to finish up doing for the day. So I don't want to be on for too long. If you're coming in, drop down in the chat and let me know who you are and where you are. Let me know your name, where you're coming in from. And let me know what you're up to this Saturday. I am fervently searching for my lip gloss. I have had coffee with sugar-free vanilla. We did no extra sugars in our coffee today. And water and all of those things. So let me re-up again. I have washed my hands several times in the past few hours, so I needed to get some moisture on those. All right, so if you saw the title, if I'm not mistaken, it says strong men or women are free from this snare, and we're going to talk about that. First, we want to talk about a particular quote that I heard maybe 2 or 3 years ago that just blessed me mightily. It was my first time hearing the quote, and since then I have heard or seen it in many places. I heard it first in a live video that William Branch, also known as the Ambassador, did a couple of years ago. And somewhere in the early part of the live, he said this quote. Let me move this because it's already getting hot. He said this quote, and the way it blessed me, it encouraged me. It made a lot of sense. Well, thank you. I don't want to mess up your hashtag or your handle name, but I appreciate the compliment. Um, he said this quote, and the way it has resonated with me up until this day. And I want to share some verses from the Bible to encourage you. So the quote is this. It says, hard times make strong men. Strong men make easy times. Easy times make weak men, and weak men make hard times. I'm going to say it again. Hard times make strong men. Strong men make easy times. Easy times make weak men, and weak men make hard times. Hi there. Thank y'all for dropping in the chat. Let me know where you're coming in from. So I thought about that quote today when I thought about the times that we are living in. The times that we are living in, some might say, what a time to be alive, while we have all of the convenience of technology. Oh, wow. Coming in from Alaska. Greetings to you. Thank you for dropping in on the live this afternoon. So it is night where you are, okay? And it is afternoon here. It's about 1:51 p.m. Thank you for dropping in and for letting us know where you're coming in from. So, in thinking about that quote, I was thinking earlier today just about the times that we're living in, about past times and present times. When you've lived a couple of decades, You start to, reminisce. You start to remember. You start to differentiate different things and how things were maybe 10, 20 years ago compared to now. Some of the things that have improved or made life easier or more desirable or pleasant. And some of the things that are more difficult. And I thought about how in the Bible we are given different warnings about the time that we are living in now. We are told in scripture in several places about the times that we are living in, that people, that the love of many will wax cold, is the way scripture describes it. Um, that we would have people that are, more concerned only about themselves. That, fathers might forsake their children. Children might forsake their fathers or their mothers. We have many warnings in the times that perilous times would come. And most of the generations of the past 100 years could probably indicate at least a 10-year span or sometime within every 10 to 15, 20 years where things have happened that they could consider hard times. And then most of us can also describe times where, things were easier in this area, or, it used to not be so hard to do this or to do that. So, with the passing of time, comes some advancement in technology. Some things are made easier because of it. But also, with the passing of time, comes some of the perilous times that we have been warned about in scripture. And so when I thought about that quote about how hard times make strong men, it made me think about, it made me observe, it made me take a moment to consider myself in the life that I'm living now. Am I a person that, in the eyes of God, or even in the eyes of the people who will be most impacted by my choices, would I be considered a strong person, a strong woman? Not strong in the description of like impenetrable, um, self-reliant, not able to lean on others, but strong by way of what I'm thinking about when I say it as being strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. Would I be considered a strong person? I think about, some of the people in my life currently, some of the past people who have passed on, um, the people who remind me of, who make me think of strength in a positive way. When I think about strength in a positive way, the people that come to mind oftentimes are um, some people who have gone on to be with the Lord. I think of grandparents. I think of my grandparents. Honestly, I think of my parents. I think of some other brothers and sisters that I have met over the past, 25 to 30 years. Some people who, even though I don't talk to them every day, when I think of strength, I think of them because they have continued to walk out this journey and still believe. Like I feel like if you are someone who is living this life in these times, and you still have hope, and you still have faith, and you still believe in God, and you still believe that living in a godly fashion is still worth it. It's still worth um, the challenges. Is still worth the discipline. Is still worth the chastening that sometimes we have to go through when God is correcting us. If you are a person who is living in these times and you still believe and you are still pressing toward the mark for the prize of the high calling, you are strong. You are strong. So, referring back to that saying, hard times make strong men, you know, a lot of us may look around now and see the world that we're living in. We may assess our hopes and our dreams for the future. We may even assess some of our disappointments. And, we may feel like, man, I put in a lot of work in certain areas and I haven't seen the fruit or I haven't seen the benefit. Or we might feel like, man, people who are really trying to fight the good fight of faith and really living for God and, doing the very best that they can to keep pressing on, toward the prize of the high calling. Sometimes we might look around and feel like, man, did I do all it? Was that for nothing? Like, was it for naught? Like, look at this world. Is there any way I can make an impact, little old me? When I look around at the things that I see happening in this world, but it makes me think about the fact that a part of being groomed and raised and prepared to be a strong person is walking through hard times. And I think about the next part of that phrase that says that strong men make easy times, and how if we look back throughout our generations, some of the things that generations past have walked through, and we look back and we marvel, like, how did they get through that in their right mind? Like, how did they make it through that and still push forward? Oftentimes thinking about the next generation. Well, people of the past walked through hard times. A lot of our ancestors, our grandparents, parents walked through some things that we might feel like they shouldn't have even had to experience. In this day and time, we have grown so much, as I said before, in technology. We have also grown a lot when it comes to knowledge of psychology. We've grown a lot when it comes to knowledge of theology. We're just understanding so much more in this day and time. And because we have a certain amount of understanding and resource, we're able to live a better quality of life. But sometimes we forget, being the privileged ones that are living this particular quality of life, sometimes we forget how difficult the things that the generations past endured so that we would have a foundation to stand on. Some of us in our privilege when it comes to resources and support, some of us in our privilege not only take our privilege and live our best lives, we turn our nose up at the people of the past who walked through the hard things that they walked through, and they didn't have what we have. And so it just takes me back again into that saying. It just so resonates. It's so true. Strong men make easy times. And, sometimes we look back on what we didn't have or what we didn't get or what we didn't know. And we forget like how easy certain things were for us because of what someone else walked through, and how easy times sometimes create weak men. So I challenge you, as I look at myself, I challenge you to look at your own life and see, like, where are you showing up as a weak person because you expected things to be easy, because maybe people in your past life, whether they are people who have gone on or people who are still yet walking, um, are there places in our lives where we expected things to be handed to us, and because we expected that and the things were not handed to us, we feel entitled. And I don't know about you, but one thing I've learned is that being entitled really puts a person in a weak and vulnerable state, because when you feel entitled to something and you feel like it was supposed to be handed to you, when in all actuality it wasn't supposed to be handed to you, you were supposed to have to walk through some things so that you could endure and become a strong person. Now, when I say that, I am in no way referring to anything that is toxic or anything that is detrimental to your mental health. I'm talking about simply the idea that something was supposed to be handed to you, the idea that something was supposed to be easy. When we operate out of entitlement, we fall into the category of weak, because we are looking for something to be handed to us, or we are mad and angry with God because He didn't make certain things easy for us. And then when we're in that particular position, it's really hard to hear God's voice and be strengthened to walk forward and to walk into whatever it is that God is calling us towards. When we are entitled, it is really hard. It is really, really hard for us to see ourselves. When we are entitled and we feel like people should do this or they should do that for us, or why didn't God do this and such for me? I've done this and I've done that. When we begin to feel entitled, feeling entitled distorts the way we think. And when our thinking is off, our actions are off. And when our actions are off, we operate like weak men or women. We operate in weakness when we feel entitled, as opposed to feeling blessed, feeling empowered, that God is not only with us, but that He's able to empower us with whatever it is that we need to walk through whatever the hard times are. Right? The next part of that phrase says, weak men make hard times. When we are entitled, we are disempowered. When we are entitled, we are not necessarily willing to pick up the plow and do the work. When we are entitled, we are not willing. We can't be honest with ourselves. When we are walking in entitlement, we can't really come to ourselves and say, you know what? I felt like God was supposed to do this and that for me, but there's actually some lessons that God was teaching me about Himself, and about who He really is, and about what really matters to Him, and how He wants to use me in my life. When we are entitled, we can't really come to that realization. When we come to the place of humility and absolute surrender to say, you know what, God, I had certain ideas about how things were supposed to go, but ultimately, you needed me to put my thoughts and my will and my understanding at your feet, so that you could give me clarity on what it is that actually matters to you, and how you are orchestrating things in my life, and where I fit and where I belong in your divine and perfect plan. Right? So I also thought about how the next part of the phrase says that weak men make hard times. And then the cycle continues, because whoever the hard times fall on, they're going to either become the strong men and set things in order, and be the ones that are going to walk out the hard things, so that the whatever the fruit of that labor is can come to fruition. We get to choose. We actually, get to choose. Now, I don't believe that we don't have control over everything and everyone, but I do believe in free will, and I believe God gave us free will with all of the rights and privileges He gave us as believers. He also gave us free will. A part of that free will is making a choice when we fall in hard times. Will we be the strong men, or will we be the weak ones? Will we be the ones who help to build things up, so that not only do we get to experience some of God's goodness in this life, not because of our works, but because of our surrender to Him and His plan, even if that means that we walk through some challenging things sometimes? Or will we be the weak men? Will we be the ones who feel entitled? Will we be the ones who um, we fall by the wayside, and we choose vices to soothe the pain of disappointment, or to soothe the pain of the anxiety of trying to live on our own and do everything in our own understanding, without relying on God and without being submitted to His plan. So, when I was thinking about that phrase earlier, and I was just thinking about just the times that we're living in. I was reflecting on my own experiences in life up until now, and the things that God is showing me in this day and time. Also thinking about, not knowing what the future holds, but knowing who holds the future, and that if it had not been for some of the things that God allowed me to walk through, I wouldn't know Him the way I know Him. I also wouldn't know myself the way I'm getting to know myself in these times. I would not be able to recognize places where my eyes were not on God, where my heart was not set on the things of God, where my heart was more so set on my will and my understanding and what I thought, what my thoughts and my synopsis and my um what I was able to put together with my own strength, in my own strength and in my own limited intelligence. So, I challenge you today, whoever is watching this, to think about it. Where do you fall in this? And I also want to address this because I know that there are some people who feel like they are experiencing hard times because of past generations. Maybe you are someone who is doing your work, you're doing your inner work, and you're recognizing maybe some of the things that happened to you in your past. Maybe you are recognizing mistakes that your parents made, or maybe you're recognizing mistakes that your grandparents made, or maybe you are someone who even in the political landscape, you are looking back and seeing like the consequences of some of the decisions that have been made for the country that you live in. If you are here in the States and you're watching this, then we understand the landscape that we are in right now that comes around every couple of years. Some people see it as the exact cycle that it is, and then others um, have a lot more hope in the changes that can be made, when different candidates are in place. Who knows? We all have different ways of thinking about those things. But if you are living in this world at this time, and you are old enough and cognizant and of a maturing mind, someone who is continuously and incrementally growing and maturing, you're going to reflect sometimes on how the decisions that were made in the past are impacting you now, from generations past all the way up until now. If you're someone who has children, or if you're someone who does not have children, you are still a part of not only the community of humanity and the community in your state, your city, your country, the community that you identify with, be that based upon your ethnicity, or be that based upon your profession, or be that based upon your interests. You are a part of a collective of people. Even if you are a more introverted and isolated type, you are still a part of a collective of people. And so you're going to think about sometimes how past things may impact you now. But the empowering thought that I would love for you to consider and maybe reflect on is that you, in this moment in time, with whatever amount of understanding and resource you have, get to decide whether you're going to be a part of the strong men who make easy or peaceful times, or if you're going to be a part of the weak men who contribute to the hard times. And there are different things that take away from our strength, all of us, if we choose to pursue those things over others. Um, Not being willing to address our mental health makes us weaker people. If we're not able to address our mental health, not being able to be a person who is reflective and able to see our own mistakes and make those corrections and be committed to making those corrections. People like that contribute to the weak. You're contributing to the weakness of whatever your community or whatever your situation is. Even if you're just thinking about your own life, not being willing to change and to grow, it makes you a part of the weak men. Not being willing to walk through whatever it is that you have to walk through and gain the strength that you need to experience some of the things in this life that you desire. When you're not willing to do your own work for yourself, then that's going to take away from the work that you can do within the community, the collective of people that you impact. We all get the opportunity to assess that and to decide, who am I? Who do I want to be to my present community, and what do I want to contribute? What do I want to leave for generations to come? We all get to decide that. And some people might say, well, no, we don't really decide because you don't get to choose where you're born. You don't get to choose your genetics. You don't choose, some of the adversities that different people face, be it racism, be it sexism, be it classism, be it discrimination because of your religious beliefs, whatever the things are that we all might say, I didn't choose this. I didn't choose this for myself. It could be a disability. It could be just challenges, maybe losses, people that you have lost, maybe just traumatic things that you have experienced that are not your fault, that you did not choose. But there are options that I will say most of us. I won't say all because I know there are the exception to the rule of people who um, are not only experiencing disability of physicality, but some people have mental disabilities. So they may not necessarily, those people may not necessarily have the power of choice that others do because they're not cognizant in a way that majority of people are, and majority of the population is. But right now, I'm speaking to the majority of the population who can understand what I'm saying and who can reflect on their own life and say, you know what? There are some ways in which I am choosing entitlement because I've been through things that I did not ask for and I did not deserve. And I don't feel like it should have been me. Um, I, I think one of the ways to grow in that is to actually be honest and say that you feel that way. And to actually address that you feel that way. I think when a person can actually look at themselves and say, you know what? I do feel entitled to such and such. I do feel like this wasn't fair. Or I do feel like I'm not investing in thus and such because I've done it for so long and I haven't gotten a return. When we can actually admit that we feel those feelings and think those things, we are in a space where we can actually grow. We can actually address maladaptive behaviors that we use to cope with some of those thoughts and some of those feelings. We can actually be proactive to get the support that we need if it's in the area of mental health, if it is in the area of physical health, if it is in the area of I guess professional growth, if it's in the area of family matters. When we are able to admit how we are actually feeling and experiencing things, we are opening ourselves up to so much growth. We're opening ourselves up to be people who can walk through these times that we're living in as strong men and women. And I know the word strong can be triggering, especially when you got a black woman saying it, because we understand there is a stereotype about black women that we have to be strong all the time, we cannot rest, and all of the things. That's not what I mean. If anything, the kind of strength I'm talking about is the strength to say no, the strength to have boundaries, the strength to adjust and destroy a codependent system that oftentimes we live in as people. And just me being a black woman and very much experiencing um, times where people think, nothing bothers you because she's fine, she'll be all right. Or where people think nothing bothers you, or even where people feel they can treat you a particular way because you have self control. Or even a situation where if you do have to tell somebody about themselves as professionally as possible, you get labeled as the attitudinal black woman. You get labeled as um you know the the y'all know those strong black women. They don't know how to be weak, and that's why they ain't got no man. Like all of those stereotypes. I'm addressing all of those stereotypes and saying that that's not the kind of strength that I'm talking about. The kind of strength that I'm talking about, and this is a great example because I completely identify with it, and a lot of people who are watching this identify with it, is being strong in the way that I'm talking about is knowing that you don't have to accept and receive any old thing just because you know how people perceive you as a black woman. Knowing that you would prefer to have help, you would prefer to have support in different ways, but if it comes down to doing the right thing, if you got to do it by yourself, you'll do it by yourself. That's the kind of strength that I'm talking about. Not the kind of strength that is um, hyper independent and is not interdependent at all. I mean, strength enough to be interdependent and not codependent, being able to work with people and to sacrifice and to give love and respect, but at the same time, know when to say no and know that it is okay for you to say no. Know that you are not obligated to say yes to everything just to prove that you are this, pleasant and docile person. Understanding what it means to live in truth, what it means to um, live in congruence with what you are actually believing in. It's one thing for us as people to say that, we have faith and we believe God, but sometimes having faith and believing God doesn't mean not raising your voice and speaking up against injustice. Sometimes having faith and believing God doesn't always mean that you deny that there's anything uncomfortable or anything that is negative or anything that is taken away from you that you are experiencing. The kind of strength that I'm talking about is strength enough to be honest about what is actually happening and being willing to address those things with integrity, with support, and with help. The kind of strength that I'm talking about really is strength enough to be weak, strength enough to say, no, you know what? I don't inwardly, I don't have what it takes to do that and such. So I have to say no because I need to take care of myself. That takes strength. It takes strength um, to ask for help. It takes strength to admit that you don't know everything. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how much money you have. No one knows it all and no one has it all. Sometimes it's strength enough just to admit that, even if you just start with admitting it to yourself. So that's what I wanted to share today. I'm going to share two quick verses to go along with those thoughts. But I want you to think about that quote. I actually recommend looking it up if you can. The person who came up with that quote or who wrote it is G. Michael Hoff. Hoff is spelled Hopf. Um, but I heard it first from William Branch a couple of years ago. And for those of you who just jumped on, we are coming from the idea that hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times. And the cycle continues, and you get to choose. You might not have been able to choose where you were born, what you were born into, and what were some of the experiences you had in the past, but you get to choose today how you're gonna navigate. You get to choose today what you're gonna stand in, what you're gonna live out of, right? And so, just a little encouragement for those of us who are strong men and women. Strong meaning we are strong in the Lord, and we are willing to set our faces like flint and walk this thing out. Come what may. I want to share with you Proverbs 29 and 25. Proverbs 29 and 25 says, "The fear of man is a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be saved." Proverbs 29 and 25, "The fear of man is a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord will be saved." Let this passage be an encouragement to um, people who you are very affected by what people think. People who you are very affected by the faces of men. You are very affected by people pleasing and having the approval of everyone. Let this be an encouragement to you to know that you aren't the first to face that challenge and you won't be the last, but you can overcome fearing people. A lot of things come from fearing people. A lot of the I guess, things that lessen our experience as humanity come from being afraid of other people, being afraid of what people think, um, going against the grain, and not to be disagreeable, but when you are holding on to a particular position and what you believe, you a lot of times are going to be the different person. And a lot of times people don't want to stand out. Um, you know, nobody wants to always feel like, oh man, I got to be the person to do the right thing in the group of people that I'm around. They're not with it. They're not with that. I want to encourage you that if you are someone that is in that space, to stand up and do what is right and to not fear people, because it is absolutely a snare. So that is the snare. The fear of man is a snare. And Psalm 91:3 says, surely he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler. And then it goes on to say he will deliver you from the hunter's trap. So if you're someone who fears people, or you fear people's opinion, you fear a lack of approval from people that you respect, you fear rejection, you fear that, maybe the community that you want to be a part of or that you are a part of, you want everybody to like you, or you want everyone to give you the pat on the back and say, oh, you're great, we love what you're doing. And so sometimes you maybe don't do things, or maybe you don't stand up in what you really believe in because you're afraid of people. Understand that um, being able to step over that hump of fearing people, it might be one of the greatest steps that you take in your life. Because once we begin to increase in our levels of not being persuaded by what other people think, then we're actually able to do something in this world. Then we're actually able to make a difference. We're actually able to make an impact. We're actually able to even focus on what it is that we need to do, what it is that we need to know and learn, what spaces we need to walk into, what places where we are needed to do the things that God has put in our hands to do. When we get over that fear of man, and I believe there's levels to it, obviously. I feel like there's always the thing where we can, have some fear of being received well or not, or fear of rejection. I think it may come up. I don't know. For some people, they may literally never deal with that, or maybe once they're over it, and it just never comes to their mind again to be concerned about what people think. I think for most people, there's levels to it. I feel like when you step over one hurdle of fear, the next one might be a little higher. But when you step over that one, you begin to rise. Your levels of being able to unapologetically be who God called you to be in this world, it just increases. And one of the main hurdles that helps us to really go up is getting over the fear of man. And so that's my encouragement today. I'm going to get off here. Thank y'all who have logged in and who have commented. The comments have been commenting these last couple of lives, and I do appreciate it. For those of you letting me know that you're here and what you are doing and where you are, your thoughts and your feelings, all of those things. I appreciate that. I think I saw all of them. Um, yeah. And for those of you who are watching anonymously, I appreciate you jumping on as well. I hope that you are encouraged. And I hope that you are choosing to show up as one of the strong men or women of your times. Um, Please know that um, you are loved and you are needed in this world. Please know that if you choose to surrender to God, if you choose to give your will over to God, He will do more in you, through you, and for you than you could ever put together in your own thinking and in your own strength. Your expectations can be exceeded, not because God does everything you want, when you want, how you want, but because his ideas are so much better. And when we are willing to relinquish all of our things, all of our thoughts, our fears, hopes, expectations, dreams, to God, he will take them and make something beautiful out of our lives, where where we can experience life with joy and with peace and with contentment, but also where we are able to contribute something that is going to make an impact that will never be erased, an impact that will affect generations to come. No more fear. That's right. Absolutely. No more fear. No more fear. And as we continue to just walk it out, it increases. The confidence increases, the boldness increases, the ability to be honest increases. We become more and more honest with ourselves. And when we're able to be honest with ourselves and God, then God is able to trust us more and more to speak truth to other people. It's nothing like, a person speaking truth like the word of God, but at the same time not being able to be honest with themselves. Even if we never know that it is not a pleasant place to be, where we exist to speak truth but not live in truth within ourselves. So that's my challenge for all of us. Let us be strong men and women in God. Let us know God, and so that the more we know God, the more we know truth. The more we know truth, the more we live in truth, and the more we live in truth, the more we can spread that truth and that love throughout the world and everyone God allows us to encounter and impact. I know that I will never know every single person who watches anything that I post, but I know that God knows and God sees, and that the people who need to hear these will hear them when they're supposed to, and that whatever it is, that message that He wants to get to you, you will get that message. And I pray that a seed is planted in you that will not only grow fruit in your life, but fruit that will remain. That certainly has been done for me, and many times there's many creators or many people who share messages. And I'm talking about, this is way before social media and all of that. I remember this was probably like 2005, 2005 or 6. And I had a cassette tape that was given to me. And I don't even remember the man's name, but I know I still have that cassette tape, because I feel like it's one of those ones I wouldn't have thrown away. It's probably in storage. But I even still remember the way the man's voice sounded on this cassette tape. And the name of the message was How to Know the Will of God. And he went from Ephesians, where it says that we aren't to be ignorant about the will of the Lord, that we are supposed to be firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. The place in Ephesians where it says, awake, O sleeper, and Christ will bring you light. And that was I was in my early 20s when I heard that message on a cassette tape that I'm pretty sure I still have. Matter of fact, I know for a fact I still have that cassette tape somewhere in a box. But I don't even remember the man's name right now. Um, by the time I go and get those boxes, I may not even think to look for the tape to know his name. But whoever he was, a preacher at that time, he got up at his church or wherever he was, and somebody recorded that cassette tape where this man was talking about firmly grasping what the will of the Lord is. And while I continue to grow, even up into this moment, in understanding, hearing the voice of God, and understanding the Bible, and what are some of the things that we learn when we hear God's voice through scripture, and even when we hear God's voice through dreams, when we hear God's voice through confirmations of different things that happen in life. I'm still yet growing in that. But back in 2000 something, 3, 4, 5, I was reminded in a time that was pivotal for me, that God, it wasn't his will for me to be ignorant. That it wasn't true that we're just walking around here and God is just up there looking at us and moving us around like puppets, and he didn't want us to know anything. that was a time where I could see in the Word of God that it wasn't for me to be ignorant about what the will of the Lord is. I might not know everything. I don't have to know everything He's doing at all times, but to know that He does care enough about me to speak to me about my life. So, just like that man who recorded that cassette tape, he might never know how much that message impact me. I know that some of the things that I get on here and share as God shares them to me, I don't know. I make a lot of mistakes when I do lives. I say a lot more than I prefer to when I do lives. One of the reasons why for a long time I didn't do lives, I always just pre-recorded videos because I could go through and edit out all of the ums. Well, I don't have time for that in the present times, but I oftentimes do have an encouraging message that I want to share. So minus the ums, I'm working on that. I believe one day soon I will be one of those people who has been taken out of my vocabulary in my processing, but because I also am a person who processes deeply, and sometimes while I'm saying one thing, something else is coming to me. So that is giving me that time to process that. But I understand that that is a thing that speakers can get over. So that's something that I'm working on. But I appreciate those of you who still drop in and give me feedback and let me know that things are an encouragement to you. And even if you don't, God knows, God sees, and that's all that matters. Whatever He wants to say to you through anything that I share, I release that. I release that to Him as I release these messages to y'all. So, anywho, I hope y'all have an amazing Saturday. I am going to go ahead on about my business for the day. It is still early yet, and I got quite a few things I need to accomplish today. So I'm going to go ahead and do those things, and I pray that God's grace and peace will be with you as you go, and that you are encouraged, and that you are confident that God is at work in your life, and that God is able to give you whatever it is that you need to show up as a person who can step over the snare of fear and show up in this generation as a strong man or woman of God. All right, have an amazing day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.